All right, and we're live. Welcome back to Puma Podcast's live stream. Kung bago lang kayo dito, welcome. Kami ang Puma Podcast. We are an award-winning audio production company with a catalog of over 40 podcasts. So you can check that out on our social media. Ako si Ella. I'm from Puma Podcast's comms team. I handle the social media for X or even LinkedIn. You're actually talking to me. So hello, this is my face. So also with us today from the team is Ed Faraon. He's a junior reporter for Teka Teka News, and he's going to serve as our male's perspective for the stream. And because it's Women's Month, at ang topic natin for today is the economics of being Pinay. Let's welcome our guests, Mayan Vital and Prof. Natsi Africa Verceles. So, just a little bit of a bio note here. Si Prof. Natsi has a master's in women development and a doctorate in social development from UP Diliman. Her research and extension work are in the areas of gender and development and gender and the economy. She is a professor at the Department of Women and Development Studies, College of Social Work and Community Development at UP Diliman. Tama po ba, Prof. Natsi?
Thank you. Magandang araw po sa ating lahat.
Right. And also si Mayan, who you might know from the Usapang Econ podcast. Pero alam niyo ba na si Mayan is currently a doctoral researcher at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom. Her research focuses on the school-to-work transition in the Philippines. And prior to her doctoral studies, Mayan also has experience in policy research and economic analysis. Hello, Mayan. Welcome back to our live stream.
Thank you for having me and magandang araw din sa lahat.
Right. Hi, everyone. Happy Women's Month. Kumusta? Kumusta ang Women's Month so far? I know si Prof. Natty has been very busy.
Yeah. Ano na ba ngayon? March 7 pa lang, di ba? I'm so exhausted
7 pa lang.
already.
Hindi pa tayo umaabot
Yeah.
sa Women's Day.
Not even. Yeah. Happy National Women's Month. And tomorrow's International Women's Day, by the way. March 8.
So to get us started off, I just want to ask, like, what are the numbers looking like? You know, we talked about earlier before the stream started, we talked about parang the median age of marriage. Before it was 28 for women, but are Pinays, continuing to delay marriage now? Is it a global phenomenon? What about prior to 2022? How old were people when they were getting married?
I can answer that. No, this is a throwback to one of the episodes of Usapang Econ. It's actually the first episode, yung bakit hindi ka pa nagpapakasal. And I remembered digging into the records of the Philippine Statistics Authority. And the data that we have is from 2000 census, in which we find that on the average, 24 years old, yung median age at first marriage ng babae, and then 27 naman for men. So as you can see, tumataas talaga, or people are getting married at a later age. And yung statistics na nasabi mo kanina is actually the latest figures. And given the trend, we can likely see that getting much older. But I'm not sure. What do you think, Natsi?
Why are young people getting married at a later age? Maybe they have more opportunities. Di ba? Kasi maybe at prior times, especially for women, di ba? Parang the logical route was, after finishing school or not finishing school, was to go into motherhood and marriage. But now, opportunities are opening up for women, especially if you look at our performance in the Global Gender Gap Index report. We are doing very well in educational attainment. In fact, at the secondary and tertiary levels, there are more women in terms of percentages who are in higher education and in secondary school than men. So we are educating our women more, and the more educated they are, the more opportunities there are, obviously, for them in terms of employment. So that's also possibly why they are delaying marriage and focusing on building careers. or finding employment, saving money, di ba? So yun. Yung mga lalaki, nagde-delay din ng marriage kasi sino naman ang pakakasalan nila? Kung nagde-delay din yung mga babae. Correct? So, I'm just conjecturing. Yeah. Kasi the trend is not only for women, di ba, Mayang? It also
Yeah,
goes for men.
for men.
Right. So
And
parang oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mayan.
no, go ahead. Sige, I'll give you some of the things that just a little bit of a background on these expectations. But go ahead, Ella. Just go ask your question first.
I want to ask though, parang, women have the reasons of like more opportunities in terms of career. They're seeking higher education. Is aside from, well, who are men going to marry if the women are busy doing other things? Parang may drive ba from men to to get married pa rin, following the same timeline as like for their parents, for example.
Si Ed, ang tanong natin.
I suppose for, young men delaying their marriages, I don't know, siguro sa akin personally, I can't speak for everyone. I think, everything's just so expensive nowadays
Mhm.
that I think, the childcare, and siguro there's another thing na on the internet nag-uusapan na they want to end generational trauma, so we're still fixing on the mental health aspect of it. So may mga ganun pang considerations on marriages and having children. So a lot of discussion nga yun yung mga expenses din. I think personally, yes, with my peers, why they want to focus on themselves muna and building their careers. They want to be stable first. And in this economy, kailangan secure yung family nila when they want to start getting into that conversation. So I suppose that's for me.
Ako, I just wanna jump in na kasi parang um yung mga ganitong klaseng expectations, 'di ba? Na parang at a certain age, bakit you're expected to, let's say, be in school and then after that, find a good job, and then you're expected to find a good job in order for you to supposedly gain stability and independence kasi in the future you want to get married and have kids. So parang all these expectations, actually it's yung sa using a life course perspective, ano pa rin siya parang drawn pa rin siya sa social norms kung ano ba yung in-expect ng society from us. And I think the expectations for women and men actually differ a lot. Like, although generally, andun pa rin yung sequencing na andun yung from education, work, marriage, childbearing. Pero let's just say na for women, ang expectation talaga ay because they have to have kids, kailangan you have to there's a conflicting kumbaga expectation na kailangan mong magkaanak or kailangan mong ikasal at a certain age because you're getting old, and therefore
Yeah.
yung chances mo yung meron kang biological constraint
Clock.
kumbaga,
Yeah.
yung biological clock, 'di ba? So nakakatawa lang na kung iisipin mo yung um, habang nag-aaral ka, andun yung pressure na huwag ka muna mag-boyfriend, huwag ka muna magpapakasal kasi kailangan mo muna maghanap ng magandang trabaho. And then suddenly, out of the blue, tatanungin ka ng mga tao, ba't hindi ka pa nagkaka-boyfriend? Bakit hindi ka pa nagpapakasal? Parang, where does it, yung, kumbaga yung expectation just suddenly changes so drastically. And yun nga, parang it's a conflict na in the beginning, you were being primed to have your own ambitions. As a woman I'm speaking as a woman. Na growing up, you're conditioned to have ambitions, to have aspirations. Like what do you want to be when you grow up? You have to, really work hard, attain higher education. And then suddenly, when you reach a certain point, bigla ka na lang dapat magpapakasal at magkakaanak. And then it's kind of hard to change that mindset, right? Na parang, what about my aspiration? So, andun din yung general societal expectation na kailangan mong isabay ang career with having kids and being married, which I think is a bit like, such a strong pressure, and we kind of underestimate just how much um parang work that actually has the amount of work that has to be done balancing both career and having children. So maybe I'd like to ask Natsi,
Yeah.
kasi I think that's something that you would be able to talk about.
Yes, you're right. No, the social cultural norms around marriage and childbearing, child rearing are different for men and women. It's really the women who are still at present, despite I don't know decades and decades of advocacy. It's still the women who bear the principal responsibility of all what we call the reproductive chores in the household. Hindi lang yan pagbubuntis ha at papanganganak. It's also the child care and whatever tasks that you need to do to maintain the household. I mean, you're lucky if you're affluent enough to have a kasambahay, but many households do not. So
Right.
they have to take care of all the, cleaning, cooking, washing the dishes, paglalaba, pagpaplancha, etc. So at the same time as you work outside the house, you have to bear what we call the multiple burdens, of productive and reproductive work. Pero can I just contextualize our discussion? I think it's important to highlight that we are talking about a specific demographic group kasi we're already launching into a discussion on careers and aspirations, etc. So obviously, we're talking about, in particular, women and men, from the middle class and higher. Kasi when we look at the lives of lower income individuals, hindi naman ganun ang pag-iisip nila eh. Hindi naman, wala naman silang career, di ba? Na iniisip. Kasi when you talk about careers, may investment yan, may vertical mobility yan, di ba? Eh kung yung trabaho mo sa informal na ekonomiya, ano yung, ano yung career na yon, di ba? Kung mare, may sari-sari store ka or naglalako ka ng gulay sa kalye, di ba? So, sinasabi ko lang na kailangan nating tandaan, especially na Women's Month ngayon, na ang mga kababaihan ay homogeneous, no? Na walang monolithic na Pinay, di ba? So, pag nag-uusap tayo ng ganito, no, pinag-usapan natin yung sektor ng kababaihang Pilipina na may mga oportunidad, na, na may parang karapatang mangarap. No? So yun lang. Wag lang natin kalimutan na we don't speak for all Filipino women in terms of experiences. And even among the middle class and upper middle class, the experiences are also differentiated. Kasi we're, obviously distinguished by other identities. Hindi lang on the basis of class. Merong religion, di ba? May ethnicity, disability or ability, etc.
Right.
So
And
yeah,
I'm glad you
pero
brought up,
yeah, but just I'll
sorry.
add, pero yung sinasabi ni Mayen, that burden of doing household work cuts across all sectors. Ha? So hindi lang yan problema ng mga mahihirap, di ba? Kahit sa upper class households, kahit may kasambahay sila, kung may magkaroon, wari may anak ka na nabuntis, sino ang pagbibintangan doon? Hindi naman yung tatay, di ba? Nanay pa rin, di ba? Kung merong anak na, let's say, nag-drugs, it's still the mother who gets the blame. Kasi you're still responsible for ensuring that your household and your family runs smoothly. And men don't have that burden. See, it's a gender norm. No, basta anything that has to do with the household, it's the women's domain, di ba?
Right. And I'm glad you were able to, like, sorry, na-disconnect ako kanina. The internet
Okay
is
lang.
not my friend today. I'm glad you brought up yung shared responsibility, or kind of, I guess, like the lack of sharing a responsibility. Because I think
Mm-mm.
like a phrase that gets discussed a lot now on the internet is how women are like uh, avoiding or delaying marriage because they can't seem to find partners who are willing to share the mental load with them. Yung like parang not even just women who aren't married yet, but like women who are already married and are complaining about their partners who are not sharing the burden of childcare or like taking care of their homes with them. Parang is there data kaya that is supporting the assumption that women aren't getting married because like of low quality partners available, like in the dating or the marriage pool for them. Because like obviously, like I'm drowning in social media content about women not wanting to have partners who are not sharing that responsibility. Parang, is there
Gawa,
data to back up?
kung wala, gawa tayo ng study, hanap ka ng funding. Kasi magandang pag-aralan
Um,
no?
I mean, in terms of dating, I mean, I know of a report, and I know of a certain type of data set that tracks yung ganitong klaseng shared responsibilities. It's the time use surveys,
Mm-mm.
in which nilalog yung mga ginagawa
Yeah.
ng mga tao sa isang household, like on a hourly basis. Kumbaga, para siyang diary, time diary. And unfortunately, I think we have one that's very dated. I think if it
Yeah.
2000, if
NSO.
I'm not
Hindi,
mistaken.
1995
NSO.
yung yeah, nakita ko yung
1995.
1995. Yung Batangas and
Exactly.
Quezon City, that's so old, yeah. Pero iba yan, hindi yan,
Exactly.
oo, time use, ano
So
lang yan, survey.
time use, but I mean, this is the kind of data wherein you would see, kumbaga, kung i-analyze mo yung data na parang okay, given certain household chores, sino yung amount of time na dinededicate ng babae versus the amount of time na dinededicate ng lalaki, then you would be able to compare. But that's the thing. I mean, it's kind of like pag it collects the data on when they're already living together, when they already are
Yeah.
part of the same household. So hindi siya yung sa dating, kumbaga. Pero it does give you an indication. Oh, sorry, let me just I just remembered that there was another study. It's a more recent one. I'll look it up later, but it similar siya sa time use survey, pero not as comprehensive. Pero it's still, I think it studied the burden during COVID time. So it was very specific to COVID time, for women and men. So yun yan, it's the same finding na women tend to carry the burden of household management, of household chores. So what I'm trying to say is, given the information that we have, na parang it seems to back up those claims na, oh nga, when you're living together, the women seem to be doing more than the men in terms of the household chores. So that probably resonates. But I am not going to generalize, because I know of some households
Yeah.
wherein men actually do their share. So maybe we can trace it back to how, social norms are created around household management. Kasi parang, if you look back at your childhood, yun nga, parang napapass on yung ganyang, yung kanyang values or yung ganyang klaseng expectation. So, maybe there is a way to change things. I'm not sure, but,
Yeah. But,
yeah.
pero Mayen, hindi ko alam kung sa circles ko lang to, no? Pero my circles are quite wide. But I am seeing shifts in those norms among younger couples. Especially those who are not still married but living together. I don't know, baka mag-change na yung dynamic when they are married, but at least while they're living together. And I still, of course, know of couples who are married who have more equitable sharing of household responsibilities. So in other words, I see hope in the younger generations. In terms of, hindi nga lang dyan mas progressive talaga yung young people, no? Siguro ano tong generation na to. Mga Gen Z, maybe even
That's
the
a great
younger,
end question as a
yeah,
Gen
the
Z.
younger or the younger millennials, perhaps. No, so I'm seeing that they're more willing, no, to share in the not just the household work but also in the child rearing. Kasi that's also time consuming, no? And emotional labor din yan. 'Di ba? So there's hope, no? So in terms of forever na ba magiging ganito? Hindi. Pero still despite this anecdotal observation that younger couples are more willing to share household tasks, women are still delaying marriage. 'Di ba? 'Di ba? So there must be other factors at play. We already talked about, wanting to invest in their careers, move forward in their careers. And then si Ed referred to the need to save, in expectation of significant expenses, especially when they build their families, ganyan. So, maraming factors, hindi lang siguro sa norms, di ba, na existing.
I actually wanted to go back to sa question ni Ella kanina about sa partners on having low quality, quote unquote. uh, nung naisip ko yung question na yun, parang siguro may mga I'm actually quite worried dun sa Generation Alpha who subscribe dun sa kay Andrew Tate na may toxic masculinity perspective. Parang kasi may mga nakikita akong rhetoric na sasabihin, mga babae ngayon, mga masyadong matataas yung standards ngayon kapag so sa akin parang when women are really trying to show on social media what their standards are, I think men should say this should be a challenge for us to do better. Don't say na ginagaslight yung mga women to thinking na they're wrong for demanding men to step up their game. So, but also I am worried about this. I would want to qualify that as well na some men would say yung mga self-worth nila, so it becomes another mental health concern for them. So yun, that's one thing. But on the more important note na when women do share on social media what their standards are, men should really take it up as a challenge to do better. That's for me at least.
I think that brings up like my question to like leading into how people are perceiving feminism. I think with social media, I think more and more young people, in their 20s, in their teenage years, they're kind of being more aware of what feminism means and defining feminism for themselves. Young girls especially, like they're exposed to all these like role models of what who and what kind of people and what standards they need to set for themselves. We have an episode coming up on a better normal this month for Women's Month na napag-uusapan ang parang how men perceive feminism is that if it doesn't include us, it's against us. And I read an article about the feminist wave in Korea where men are like specifically they're very violent towards women who express express their feminism and wanting for equality. What do you think is, or what have you observed, or what does the research say about how men in the Philippines are perceiving feminism and how Filipinas are acting on their feminism?
Okay. Walang study, no? But I'm actually currently writing a paper on Filipino men who are feminists. Pero syempre, small lang yung sample size ko, no? 14. But, and they're not all young. May mga senior na dun sa sample ko. I think it would be too harsh to say that Filipino men are not for feminism. It's not the same as in Korea. In Korea, talaga grabe yung backlash no, sa feminism, especially with the current president who wants to abolish the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. I mean, he ran on an anti-feminist platform. I mean, that's nothing like that. Even if we had a sexist, misogynist president in the past, hindi naman nag-escalate no, to that level yung... but wala naman ako nararamdaman na anti-feminism backlash here in the Philippines. No? There is none. I think what I've noticed is resistance to the term feminism. Wala namang problema sa gender equality. No? Kasi gender equity, women's empowerment, gender justice, hindi contentious yan. Pero pag minsan naririnig na yung word na feminist or feminism, may reaction. And I think that stems from the reality that I do not think people know what feminism means. Di ba? Akala nila it's man-hating, bra-burning. It's women who want ascendancy over men. They just want to overturn the patriarchy. Hindi naman yon, di ba? Kaya lang kasi when women assert, they think that it's a movement, di ba? for women to, so, quote unquote, run the world. Hindi naman ganun yun. Kasi what we are for really is equality. Pero kailangan may justice before equality. So, at least sa mga kilala kong mga men, wala pa akong naririnig na nagsasabing mali yung pinaglalaban nyo. Di ba? So, pwede pang ituloy. Di ba? And what I think we need to do, and I've been asserting this na for quite some time, we need to involve men in our conversation. So tigilan na natin yung mga men is trash na yan. All men, ano yung, men is trash. All men are trash. Di ba? I know that's supposed to be a hyperbole, pero napaka divisive ng mga ganyang approaches eh. Because obviously you can't change unequal gender relations by working only with women. Diba? You need to work with
Right.
men as well. And also, it's important for men to understand that all these gender norms, roles, stereotypes also affect them negatively.
Mm-mm.
Correct? Because there are also impositions on men that they're supposed to be a certain way. No, they have to be masculine in a certain way for them to be real men. No? So it's not just women who suffer from gender norms.
So coming from that, my question tayo dito from one of our reporters from Teka Teka News, Isabella. She says, I've often heard that the Philippines is being praised for empowering women in the workplace, especially in comparison to other countries. Are we actually doing well in this regard? And if we are, there's always room for improvement. What are good goals to have and good metrics for measuring our progress?
Sige, let me I think I'll link it back to what Nazis mentioned earlier, no, yung sa gender gap. I think it has different measures, if I'm not mistaken, Nazi, no, na parang yun
Yeah.
nga yung proportion of women in high positions and in businesses and all sorts of things. So it just means that we're doing well in that regard na there's a lot more opportunities for women in the workplace. However, that said, oh yun, another thing pala before I said however, we are probably one of the few countries na, especially in Southeast Asia, na naging president ay women. So that always says, like, it's a good sign that we entrust country leadership, diba, on women. However, I think of course, there's still some gaps. If I'm not mistaken, there was a PIDS paper looking into the role, or at least yung distribution of women sa government or sa public sector, and also in certain industries. So although we are seeing women taking up leadership positions, in certain industries or parang certain sectors pa rin. So for example, we see it in social work, education,
Education. Yeah.
exactly, sectors wherein parang nababrand siya as feminine, whereas yung mga more traditional sectors, like for example, like mga engineering, ganyan, ano pa rin, very dominant pa rin yung male, na parang hindi pa rin nabibigyan ng maraming opportunities ang women to climb up. So sa mga ganong aspeto, I think we can do a lot more. And what they say is about qualifications, there aren't many women in STEM, ganyan. So then I guess whether or not that's true, because I know that the numbers of women actually, graduating from STEM courses are increasing. It means that meron pa ring smidge of discrimination, or meron pa ring ganong klaseng expectation that it's a man's job. And I just want to draw on some of the things that came up when we conducted our focus group discussions on economic opportunities, and also linking it back to what Nazi is saying na across classes, iba-iba pa rin talaga yung trends, and even across regions, diba, where economic realities are very different. So yung mga regions na parang hindi pa rin siya well developed, actually women find it hard to find jobs. And these are places where you find a lot of women not participating in the labor force or being unemployed because there aren't just enough opportunities for them. So yun, it means that on the whole, we're doing well, but in certain pockets, like regions and certain classes and certain areas, kailangan pa rin nating pagtuunan ng pansin. And whether or not it has something to do with labor policy, because in education we're doing well, then that, I guess, is what we need to ask the government to look into.
Pero can I add something? Because before we started, we were talking about the labor force participation rates, di ba, Mayen? Between
Yeah.
women and men. So I have the data from the last Global Gender Gap Report. That's 2023. The percentage differential, alam mo, persistent ito ha. Kasi parang between 18 to 22% nga yung percentage differential between the LFPR of men and women eh. So in the like okay, so yung sa last report, parang ang difference nila ay minus 24.72. Ang laki, di ba? Ang laki kasi 44%
Yung
ang
women.
ang women in the labor force. So these are
Yeah.
44% of all women 15 and over. Di ba,
Mhm.
are either employed, unemployed, or looking for work. And then yung men, 68.77. So kailangan natin i-interrogate, bakit ang persistent ng gap na yan, na hindi ma-close-close? Di ba, like there are countries in Southeast Asia na 68% ang LFPR.
Mhm.
So is it just the lack of opportunities for women? Or is it because they're still primarily tied to the work that they need to do in households? Di ba? Kasi bakit hindi natin, look, yun nga yung irony eh. Our women are educated. But what do they
Yeah.
do after they graduate if they don't join the labor force? Di ba? So di ba dapat
That
nating i-bridge yung gap na yon? Correct? So dapat nating
sobra.
pag-isipin. Mm.
Yes, yes. Sorry, na-excite ako sa
Yeah.
sinasabi mo. Kasi
Sige, sige.
that's something that I'm trying to also investigate in my research. And um the thing is, so that's a good starting point na parang bakit bakit even though women are outperforming men in terms of educational attainment, bakit at the end of the day, when they're about to supposedly get integrated in the labor market, bakit mas mababa ang ang participation? And then also, just as a background, what we mean by LFPR, or labor force participation rate, ito yung kumbaga, given the working age population, let's say of 15 to 65 years old,
Five. Yeah.
yeah. So parang ilan doon, ano yung proportion na kung saan willing yung mga tao na magtrabaho, or they're looking for a job. So in other words, sila yung mga tipong willing sila na actually maging integrated sa labor market. So sila yung mga naka-count as employed, unemployed. So it means that if 40% yung women na nagpa-participate sa labor force, there's 60% who are saying na, oh, we're not going to look for a job. Wala. And then there are certain reasons na being asked in the labor force survey. And actually, I had the opportunity to look at the data before na parang a lot of them are citing household obligations as a major reason. And then there's this very interesting study commissioned by NEDA, and it was done by Kabigin and Gadi. This is in 2019, that really looked into why it's one of the lowest in the ASEAN region. As Nazi said, na parang bakit ibang countries ang taas ng participation rate. And it's a really interesting paper. I'd ask everyone to read on it, because even though yun nga, na-count yung opportunities, but even for those women who have the opportunity, or who have had the opportunity, kasi may may focus group or parang key informant interview, so they were really asked. Some women said na, oh, their husbands made them resign because they have children. Yung mga ganong klaseng
So it's still rooted in like
experiences.
Filipino values, yung mga dahilan na ganun.
Norms. Norms.
Despite,
Yeah.
despite the what we're seeing na parang rise in like opportunities and feminism, nakakapag-aral naman yung mga babaeng to, like they're still very much considerate of those values
Actually, yung
or
pressure,
the heads
hindi,
of
it's the
household.
yeah, pero Ella, alam mo, yung pressure kasi hindi lang naman sa asawa. You know naman yung lipunan natin, di ba? You hear it from
Right.
your mother, your
Exactly.
father, your in-laws, di ba? Bakit
Right.
bakit iniiwanan yung mga bata sa bahay? So it's really societal pressure. Hindi lang yung simple bargaining between husband and wife, di ba? There's so many other people who interfere in women's decisions. Pero I
Yes.
think importanteng isipin din Mayene, Ella and Ed, why are we so insistent that women have to work? Di ba? So we're not diminishing the value of women who decide. Basta if they out of their own free will, not because of lack of choices or opportunities, okay? If they decide to work at home, we respect that, no? And we value it. Alam nating mahirap ang ginagawa nila sa bahay.
Yes.
Pero why
Household
is
work is
it
still work.
it is work and it's
Yeah.
valuable work, 'di ba? And it should be recognized, no, as valuable work. Pero bakit mahalaga rin, no, para sa mga kababaihang gusto magtrabaho sa labas ng bahay, na makapagtrabaho sila. So hindi lang naman for self-esteem. I mean, yeah, 'di ba? It's
Mm.
really nice, no? Pero it's also having your own income. 'Di ba? And whatever empowerment that you're able to derive from having your own income and the freedoms that it allows you. You can leave an abusive marriage. 'Di ba? You're not tied to an abusive partner if you have your own income, 'di ba? And you're able to just alam mo naman, 'di ba, kung may pera ka, ang dami-dami mong pwedeng gawin. So, bakit natin dine-deny ito, no, sa mga kababaihan? Even if studies have also shown that women are more want to spend their own income on family expenses. It's crazy, right? So, even if they do work, they still spend most of what they earn on their families, di ba? And then men, they also set aside for vices and etc. So, pero ibang pakikibaka naman yan, know how to spend your
Yeah.
money. Pero I'm just saying na ang ano pa rin, ang bigat pa rin ng impluensya ng socio-cultural norms on women's behaviors and attitudes.
I just wanted to quickly jump in doon. Parang yesterday I saw a reel of a woman CEO. I forgot the name, but basically what she said was, by the time women climb the ranks in middle management, their children become teenagers, and then they're forced to. They have more expectations to be at home because teenagers need their mothers, and then hindi nakakaakyat na into higher ranks. So sabi nung women CEO na yun na the workflow or the standard work timeline should also consider yung mga factors that we just mentioned about having children and yung teenagers yun. So I just wanted to quickly add that kasi naalala ko yung reel
Yeah.
kahapon.
Pero,
No.
but children, di ba? I don't know if they need their parents more when they're teenagers. Parang they need their parents more when they're younger. Di ba? Before they go to preschool. So parang, so kailan ba? So kailan ba kung babae ka? Kailan ba okay? Di ba? Para sa amin na magtrabaho. And then you lose your seniority when you leave the workforce. And then when you
Right.
return, di ba?
Yeah,
Ano
that
na?
that's true. And even I'm just gonna bring up yung nanalo ng Nobel Prize. It's because of her work on yun nga yung gender na parang the gender pay gap is not so much because of yung gano'n na given the same amount yung
Yeah.
parang two people or a man and a woman having the same sort of job and just having generally different pay or parang magkaiba lang yung salary nila. But it's also about these that women have to leave the workforce to take care of their children. So they sometimes give up a lot of these things um yun, corporations still rely on that aspect na especially if a woman is married, chances are she's going to take off because of she has family. So yung promotions and everything, it just solely depends on your civil status because of the signal that it creates. And so just wanted to go back to what Natty was saying about yun nga, yung sa work. And and how women, choose to work. And it's because of our current economic realities, di ba? Na
Yeah.
parang you have to work because it's just the cost of living is insane. Like,
Right.
why would I resign if I know that what I'm earning is eventually gonna help the family? Parang, what?
Mm-mm.
It just doesn't make sense. And it's what's really pressing, especially now, di ba? Na parang yung pinaka-question na why do women work in the first place? Kasi yung most of the time it's also a survival thing, and the obligations are not just for your, let's say, for your immediate family, like your children and your husband. That sometimes you also have that obligation for yung previous family mo, yung parents mo, yung
Mm-mm.
Right.
yung mga kapatid mo. And in a collectivistic society such as ours, our obligations never stop. So
Mm-mm.
it's a lot of these. Can you imagine, there's so much pressure, societal pressure, the family pressure, and then your own parang self-imposed pressure. So we have to navigate or negotiate all these pressures to command our trajectories. And it's just wala, it's really tiring, but you can see women are still pushing on. So yeah,
So I wanna jump off for that question kasi meron tayong may question tayo dito about uh, economic empowerment ng mga babae. Sabi ni Bella, I find that when we talk about empowering women economically, what often gets overlooked is how this benefits not just them but everyone else as well. Nasabi nga ni Mayan kanina na may pera ka for yourself, may pera ka for your children, and dapat, that's where it should end. Pero in our society, pati yung care ng parents mo, ng siblings mo, yung mga kamag-anak mo sa probinsya that you haven't spoken to in forever, nagiging obligasyon mo na rin. How can we better communicate, to all the people involved na parang mamili ka, magtatrabaho ba ako, will I stop working? Will I stop earning money to take care of my child? Or like, gusto mo bang supportahan kita? How do we how do we communicate the need for balance there?
Between husband and wife or partners,
I guess not
or
just
between
partners, but also like older
or
generation.
even it's like
Yung first,
setting boundaries. Setting
yes, the
boundaries.
boundaries.
I think
Yes.
there's no way around it. You just have to, I don't know, explain that the imposition is too much. I mean, up to when, no? Hanggang mapatapos mo sa pag-aaral lahat ng mga kapatid mo. After that, tutulong ka pa sa pamangkin mo kung hindi nila kaya, hindi ba? So I think may hangganan. And I think parents naman and siblings will understand that if you have your own family especially, that you can only help to a limited extent. Pero I don't know if that's delaying Mayana. I'm not sure if that has to do with delaying marriages because of the need to continue to support family members. Hindi pa alam kung factor rin yun. I don't know. Sa tingin nyo? Merong ganon. May kilala akong
Oo.
ganon. Pero hindi ko alam kung
Possibly.
generalizable. Oo, na kasi sa hirap ng panahon, may expectation pa rin yung family. Pinagtapos ka namin sa pag-aaral. It's your turn naman to take over.
Yeah.
Like, possibly, no?
It is
Matanda
very
na.
possible.
Yeah.
It is very
Mm-mm.
possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, maraming mga ganyang tropes din sa popular di ba, mga films and na parang hindi yung this is something na even yung mga lalaki, 'di ba, na parang hindi mo na sila magpapakasal ng girlfriend nila kasi syempre may mga obligasyon sila. Yung mga ganong klase. Sorry, I brought in a little bit of pop
Hindi,
culture,
tama.
pero 'di ba? It's a reality that everyone faces na parang magpapakasal ka at a time na 'di ba na kailangan mo pang pag-aralin yung mga kapatid mo, yung mga ganong klaseng pressure. So absolutely that is a valid reason.
Giguilt trip ka pa no? Pero may nabasa rin ako mahal magpakasal. Mahal magpakasal. The expenses of the wedding itself is also a consideration kasi gusto nila maganda yung kasal nila. Di ba?
Right.
Hindi
I can speak
simpleng,
on that as somebody with like multiple people in my life are engaged or about to get married.
Yeah.
Congratulations to them. But I'm also like watching them with their little spreadsheets.
yeah,
They're like, ang mahal
mahal.
magpakasal. But like when you try to budget it
Yeah.
naman, it's also you're dealing with the expectation na, ano ba yan, you come from a good family,
Yeah,
nagtatrabaho naman kayo pareho, and this is all you
correct.
can afford. Tapos,
Yeah, exactly.
parang there, ang daming nakasalalay na expectation sa mga babae. It's like, get married, but it has to be a nice wedding. Get married, but it has to be an expensive wedding. Tapos
It
kailangan,
has to be a
kasal ka na
grand
by,
one.
has to be a
Yeah.
grand wedding. Tapos kailangan afford mo na siya by 30 years old. Wala, kailan ako mag-iipon?
Pero pero minsan kasi mga babae rin ang may gusto niyan eh. May choice naman
Yeah,
sila eh, 'di ba? Pero
it's the fantasy.
yeah, it's the K-drama fantasy maybe.
The rom-com
Social
fantasy.
Yeah.
social media
Social.
pressures. I mean,
Oo.
Yes.
nakikita mo yung
Pwede,
mga
pwede.
same day edits and all that na parang
Correct.
Oh my God.
it feels
Correct.
like you have to do it kasi parang ay otherwise ay
Exactly.
ano ka. 'Di ba?
And
Yung mga
yeah,
ganung pressures.
And
and
then
we
if
were
you
talking
get
about
married in secret, may connotations din yan. If you get married low-key, hala, what if she was pregnant pala? That's why they kept it
Oh.
secret. Diba? Parang, saan lulugar ang not just babae, pero like couples ngayon
pero
with
it's not
those
Also,
just the
kinds of
couple.
expectations.
It's also the families that
the
expect it eh.
family,
'Di
yeah,
ba?
parents.
Oo. Yeah, the parents. 'Di ba ang daming ang bisita na hindi naman kilala talaga ng bride and groom.
Exactly.
'Di ba? Mga friends of the parents. It's also a way for them to show off, 'di ba? So it's really a cultural thing among those who can afford. Yeah. I mean, I would put
Yeah.
off marriage. I mean, if I had to face that, 'di ba? Or I would argue and insist that I'm going to have a small, simple wedding in another country
Yeah.
just to escape. No?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pero I just wanted to bring in yung rising phenomenon of cohabitation, ano.
Yeah.
Yun nga, given na mataas yung cost of marriage.
Yeah.
So, tumataas yung mga at least yung numbers ng mga taong nagre-resort to cohabitation. And actually, cohabitation makes sense in some ways, financially, kasi it
Yeah.
means na you can live together, especially if, let's say, you're not from Manila. This is gonna be Manila-centric, I'm sorry, pero let's say your work is in Manila, and then it just makes sense for you to live near where you work. And sometimes it makes sense for people to cohabit in order to save on the rental costs and also
Mhm.
share the bills, and then maybe even yun nga yung commute and everything. So may mga ganong klaseng considerations and why cohabitation is also becoming a rising phenomenon, apart from of course mahal talaga magpakasal, and just
Yeah.
the fact we don't have divorce as well.
True,
So
true, true, true. Can I pick off from what you said? Very important yun na yung live-in arrangements. Di ba in the past, people were marrying kasi hindi sila pwede mag-sex. Correct? Outside of marriage. I mean, still, I know that a lot of Filipinos still stand by that. But now that there's greater openness, they can live in. So wala nang pressure na kailangan muna tayong ikasal bago tayo mag-sex. No? We can just move in. And I know of so many people who actually cohabit. And it's an economic, like you said, no, medyo economically expedient siya, particularly for young couples because you can divide not just the household chores but also the expenses. Pero I think maganda rin tignan, is it also a reason why people are marrying late? Kasi they have this option already. Tapos,
yeah.
natetest pa nila. Actually, yung hindi lang siya financial strategy, mayan eh. Kasi couples also cohabit to see whether or not they get along. So, tutuloy ba natin to?
Right.
Hindi. Kakasal ba tayo? Kasi kung hindi nag-workout, edi parang test period, di ba? So, syempre, that also prolongs your,
Yeah.
I don't know, your age of marriage. Kasi you have that choice nga, di ba? Yun.
Yeah, definitely.
Siguro just wanted to add another thing here. A rising internet slang, siguro a very recent one, yung DINK, D-I-N-K, double income, no kids. So, yeah, that's another thing. What do you think of that?
ang dami ko nang kilala ng mga Gen Z. No, I'm serious. I mean, it's really surprising for me that so many. And they talk about it matter of factly. Alam niyo naman yung ating um, the way we glamorize, no? The way we hold maternity, no, as the highest calling of women, di ba? And they're really bravely going against that. So talagang decision nila na they can't, they have so many reasons. Di ba? Minsan political pa nga, no? May environmental, not just personal, ha, na I don't feel I'm fit to be a mother. But more like I don't want to add to, climate change and environmental degradation, mga ganyan. Also political, I don't believe in motherhood, mga ganyan. Pero totoo. And I think that has to be respected as a choice. We should not stigmatize women who decide that they do not want to have children. Kasi alam mo, sobra pa rin siyang stigmatized if you say it, that I don't intend to
Yeah.
have children. Especially if you're married na. So that's the pressure that these women have to go through, and we need to support them through it. No? We have to normalize choices also when it comes to motherhood, no? Or not entering motherhood.
Absolutely. Yeah.
May comment dito from Carl. Ang sabi ni Carl is, does this mean, so with all the conversations that we've had about the factors as to why women are not, choosing not to get married or delay getting married, does this mean that women have more leverage or control in relationships and deciding about marriage and children, or that they forgo relationships? Parang, is the ball now in the woman's court to make those decisions? Or are we seeing na parang may power but it like is a lot of the power still coming from men? Oy, pakasal na tayo.
Di ba dapat di ba dapat pinagkakasunduan yun? Di naman natin sinasabi na unilateral dapat yung decision.
If
Diba?
we're seeing, if we're seeing na parang women are like, may malaking percentage of women who are college graduates but are not choosing not to enter the workforce. Parang how malaki pa ba ang influence in that sense?
I would just say na siguro at least medyo balanced na sila in a way na parang both of them have equal powers to decide on whether or not they're gonna get married. Kumbaga, kung if the woman is able to bring in something to the table, 'di ba? Kasi meron siyang degree or meron siyang job opportunities or meron siyang kakayahan, then yes, meron siyang say. Pero again, we're talking about middle class women who have had the opportunity to get a higher education degree. Even though, let's say, meron ng mga sociologists nagsasabi na, okay, mate selection in our country is parang more free in a way na hindi siya arranged marriage ng parents, ganyan. Pero may dynamics pa rin eh. Kumbaga, when you enter into a relationship and entering into a marriage, meron pa rin siyang power dynamics, and it's usually rooted in, economic capability. Ano yung kaya mong i-bring into the table. So, sino yung makakapagsabi na, okay, ikakasal na tayo? Sino ba yung may power ba ang women to say no? So, I guess yun, babalik siya dun sa our argument na it depends on how, first of all, yung capability ng women to make such a decision, to say yes or no. And then, of course, kung ano yung prevalent social norms, kung nasaan yung babae. Kasi may mga areas pa rin, like in rural areas, na very traditional pa rin yung perspective. So, it's a bit hard to say. I'm not sure if there's any study on this, but on the whole, we can say na it's largely dependent on many factors.
Going back to yung... Yeah, go ahead.
Pero nakaka-assert na. Naka-assert na yung mga women, especially when they're also earning an income. Diba?
Yeah.
So sige, go ahead, Ella.
So we have a comment. Going back to yung conversation on cohabitation, there's a comment here from Siege. She says na Pero there's also a study that showed that couples who get married have better long-term financial outcomes versus couples that cohabitate. The theory is that it's a combo of financial slash legal incentives. Couples that marry are more likely to approach finances from combined finances and approach investments and savings as a team. So, like we talked about parang the benefits of parang people choosing to cohabitate. Pero ngayon, I guess the question is, uh, ano ngayon yung benefits of getting married? Yung financial, economic benefits of getting married. Just to make a case for both sides.
I mean, sige, I'll try and jump in. So,
Sige,
it makes
ikaw.
sense na ano na nga once you're married, it means na um, you're there for good, 'di ba? Kasi lalo na wala tayong divorce. So parang ano na siya, parang solid na siya na it so the only way for you to um so yung investment decisions nyo, yung saving strategies nyo are really kind of anchored on the fact na you're going to be together forever. So therefore, mas prudent na kayo sa expenses nyo, mas nag-iisip na kayo on how you invest your money. So therefore, yes, that's one of the good sides of a marriage that is sure to be a marriage forever in the Philippines case. Pero entirely exclusive naman yung sa cohabitation. Kasi yung sa cohabitation, meron kang risk or uncertainty na posible kayo magtagal, posible kayong hindi magtagal. So therefore, ano pa rin kayo, meron kayong, although parang it makes sense for you to share or split the costs on a current basis. So walang future value kayo na tinitignan, 'di ba? Kasi parang yun nga, andun yung uncertainty. So in that sense, kung hindi ka pa sure talaga sa partner mo, and you're just, yun nga, it's a trial period, and it makes sense on your current situation, then yeah, cohabitation makes sense. Pero once you're already married, then of course, mag-iba na talaga yung mindset mo on investment and saving strategy. So there are plus sides to both depending on what you need at the moment.
Right. So we are very close to the 1 hour mark dito sa stream natin. I'm sure like if it were up to me and my little feminist brain, this conversation could go on for like 5 hours. But we do need to be considerate of other people's time. So I guess like I want to ask, just to wrap up, parang what, it's Women's Month, but this is a conversation that should be had all year round. Parang what's something, what's your main takeaway? What's your parang thesis statement that you want women to consider when making economic decisions for themselves? Mahirap ba?
Natsy,
What
go
should
ahead.
they so what should they think about when they make economic decisions?
Or
Diba?
like what are things that you've taken? What's like your favorite thing that you've taken away from this conversation?
Okay. Ako, syempre mahalaga yung economics, di ba? Di ba? Hindi tayo mabubuhay. Pero I think, kailangan rin balansehin yan sa kalayaan, di ba? Kagustuhan, kagiliwan, di ba? So, we also have to decide on the basis of what makes us happy, di ba? I mean, given of course you have enough to survive, di ba? Pero in terms of making decisions, I don't know if we should allow economics to dictate what we do. No, of course we need to be pragmatic, pero consider also no na your happiness. Kasi yung question about they have married couples have better long-term financial outcomes. Inisip ko, paano kung hindi ka na masaya? Di ba? Maganda nga yung financial outcomes na kung magsama tayo pero binubugbog mo naman ako or you emotionally abuse me. Do I have to stay with you only because it makes better financial sense? So that's what I mean, no? So you have to weigh, what makes you happy, what empowers you, what gives you freedom, where are you able to exercise your agency over just merely economics. So yun. And economics should serve the social goals, no, of freedom and agency and happiness, not the other way around. So yun.
Ikaw, Mayan.
Nako, ang ganda ng mga sabi ni Natsi. It's hard to top that. I'm just gonna agree, no? Pero ako kasi, na I feel kasi that women are bound by a lot of these social and economic constraints, kumbaga. Na parang, I agree, totally agree na women should take it upon themselves to exercise their agency. Yun nga lang, it's really difficult kasi ang dami talagang pressures. And I feel like dahil nasabi na ni Natsi on the individual level, can I just comment on social policies instead?
Sige,
Yes,
gusto
of
natin yan.
What we
course.
can do
Gusto natin
better
yan.
as a society. Kasi parang there are so many policies that could really empower women. Kasi nakikita na natin kung ano yung mga pressures, kumbaga, at limitations. So we talked about discrimination, we talked about yun nga yung burden of home care. Maybe we can talk about, or we start thinking about policies relating to fair allocation of household care. Kasi makikita mo yan sa sa kung sino ba yung kumbaga in the workplace. Let's say both parents are working. Ang babae lang yung magkakaroon ng leave, 'di ba? Siya yung may maternal leave kasi andun yung expectation na ang babae yung mag-aalaga ng anak niya. Why not have like paternal leaves, 'di ba? Na kung saan yun nga binibigyan mo ng opportunity yung lalaki na mag-alaga ng anak niya kasi meron siyang designated kumbaga na leaves to consume. So, yung mga ganong klaseng policies could likely reshape the way, yung dynamics, kumbaga, ng family and care. And also yung, kalimutan ko na yung kung ano, pero it's also about yung stereotypes nga na parang yung babae ka, dito sa ganitong klaseng role ka lang mapupunta, or baka we can open up yung industries to accommodate more women. It's a bit hard to do, but we have to do that kasi it ultimately redounds to women having more opportunities. And also, although sinasabi natin na okay, education, women are getting more educated, but of course we still see a lot of people in areas na women don't receive enough education. But I think there's a lot of mga government oriented programs, let's say mga vocation, which is a good path. Pero the main question is how can we integrate people talaga in the labor market? Anyway, I have a lot to say about this, pero my main point is that we can do a lot more in terms of social policies just to change the way things are. And maybe that's another topic of discussion that we can have in the future.
Right, that's a really good answer. Yun nga, parang ako, I grew up in I went to school at an all-girls school, and I thought that paternity leave was an actual thing because our male teachers got it. And then I asked other people, they're like, no, that's not a thing. Or if it's a thing, maiksi lang yun time. Parang, I think I have a lot more to learn about like the social policy aspect of equality, not just for women, but like for men as well, to be able to take part in these kinds of things. To Ed, no pressure.
Yeah, no, just very
But-
quickly. I just wanted to put in the social media aspect of it. Na yun nga, I want to quickly raise yung sinabi ko kanina. I'm worried really about dun sa rising anti-women sentiment. Especially for young generation alphas, because you have these influencers like Andrew Tate, and these conversations are good to have kasi it malalaman ng mga kabataan ano ba yung mga pressures of women. who are in the workforce kasi they're not exposed to these, these realities, mga kabataan ngayon. So, we should continue these conversations, and more importantly, how can we make this information consumable to them, to their understanding. So, yun lang siguro yung point ko, so we can continue this wave of progressive ideas.
Right. Great, great insight from everyone all around. I want to thank everyone for their time. We're a little over our allotted 1 hour for today's live stream, but I want to thank especially Prof. Nancy and Mayan for being with us today. May gusto ba kayong i-promote or i-plug before I close us out? I mean, like, Prof. Nancy has 1,000,000,001 activities. Bilang Women's Month ngayon.
Basta join all the activities that you see on Facebook if you can, from the University of the Philippines. Marami kasing ongoing. Tapos, happy National Women's Month to everyone, and happy International Women's Day again in advance. It's tomorrow.
Ikaw, Mayan. Any studies you need to check out?
Yung mga na-mention ko kanina. I don't know if I'll just probably comment all of these in the chat.
Sa Twitter. Send it to us.
I can do that.
You can email it to me and I'll post it to Twitter natin.
That's great. I'll do that. Pero I am just gonna co-promote whatever Nazi was saying. I think in order for us to really fully understand kung ano na yung mga issues na parang we just hit the kumbaga the very top of what's happening.
Super.
So by engaging and participating in all these conversations, and we get to uncover more and maybe see how we can truly help everyone, not just women but also men, like have a harmonious relationship with one another. So yun.
Right. So ako, medyo mahaba itong sabihin ko, but thank you everyone for being here today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow Puma Podcast and Teka Teka News on social media, and of course your podcast app of choice. Pwede niyo ring i-check out ang Usapang Econ on all of your favorite podcast apps. Like na-mention ni Mayan kanina, ang premiere episode nila ever in 2019. It's called Bakit Di Ka Pa Nagpapakasal? And may part 2 rin yun, Bakit Di Ka Pa Nagpapakasal part 2, that's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And of course, here at Puma Podcast, syempre araw-araw naman namin celebrate ang women, ang kababaihan, but please do check out our lineup of episodes this March on Go Hard Girls, our podcast that turns the spotlight towards outstanding Filipina athletes, and to A Better Normal, which is premiering episodes every week this month featuring some pretty cool women entrepreneurs. We actually have an episode that came out today featuring the founders of Imaginable Workplace. Imaginable Impact. And they want to send out an invitation to women entrepreneurs, people who are interested in business, of all genders, to the Found Her Forum, hosted by Imaginable Impact. They are in an inclusion studio that aims to build a community of women entrepreneurs for women entrepreneurs. That's going to be on March 12 at 2 p.m. in Makati. If you want details and tickets to that, you can head on over to imaginableimpact.com. Again, maraming salamat kay Mayan, kay Prof. Nazi, and Ed for joining us today, at sa lahat ng nanunood. We will see you at the next one. Maraming salamat at Happy Women's Month!
Happy Women's Month!